I am Pelor. How are you doing up there? You see, from my vantage place, I am not looking down from the stratospheres of our solar system. I am looking up from inside the earth. I have not had too many opportunity to express. Usually when that opportunity comes, it is because there are matters of importance to bring to your attention. I am the twin flame to the mighty Virgo. I am, I stoke, I maintain the eternal sun of even pressure at the center of your planet. I do this because I am the threefold flame of the planetary life of Earth. At the same time, I stoke, I manage, I sustain, and expand the threefold flame in the center core of your Earth planet. Whilst the people of Earth have gone through the various phases of super development and underdevelopment, it is us who have maintained the core of your planet to keep it safe. I wish to tell you a little bit more of our kind, and it is the same. Whether I speak of myself, Pillar, or whether I speak of the gods, the planetary gods, the elemental gods, such as Neptune and Aries, there is one thing that I see that you are not clear about, so I come to shine my light into that fog. Of all beings in our spiritual hierarchy, those of us who are associated as being gods of a planet or the elements, we represent the threefold activity of individualized consciousness. We are creator being. We are angelic. And we are elemental. We hold within the core characteristic, substance, and personality of our spirit, our presence, and soul, the threefold configuration of an I am creator being, an angelic being, and an elemental being, thus giving us unlimited powers and the ability to direct those powers as we see that is appropriate. Now you know a little bit more about us. In the earth, we have maintained a relationship with the evening rose, the goddess of the Himalayas. A relationship that has required a movement of beings that would provide us the information of what is happening on the surface of the planet, what is happening within the immediate infrastructure of the planet to a depth of 25,000 feet. We depend upon the beings of the Himalayas to constantly report to us. We have been assured, because it is our role and responsibility to report to those who govern the surface of the earth. The people think that they govern the surface of the earth, but they don't. They just make it a mess. The Himalayas govern the surface of the earth. Yet that is subjected to the free will of the visiting race. Now, in watching the shenanigans of the people of Earth, we have leaned on many of the various gods that live on the surface of your planet to measure what is happening inside the infrastructure of the planet to a depth of 25,000 feet. And then we give them a report of our activity from the center of the earth up to that height of 25,000 feet below the surface. Now that surface makes no difference whether it is the plains, a field, the surface where a city is implanted, or whether it is the depths of the ocean floors. Wherever that surface happens to be, it is 25,000 feet down, in which we have those on the earth that monitor, report to us, and we report up. And all our evidence is given to the evening rose that governs the Himalaya Valley. As you might imagine, the stability of the planet, number one. Number two, the ability of the planetary substance itself and the elements it is composed of to continue to maintain evolution along with the evolving consciousness of the visitor race. In that regard, the visitor race fell behind, and the evolving consciousness of the planet therefore climbed ahead. Number three, the responsibility of any planet similar to ours that has a north and a south pole, hemispheres, and more. The movement of those poles timely to the evolution of the consciousness of the planet and its ability to do so. All of these motions are intended to unfold in a state that brings no harm to life. Whether it is life inside the planet or whether it is life that lives up on the surface of the planet. Presently, there are a small population that is living in the center of the earth. There's about 3.6 million, if I generalize it, of us that are living in what you can conveniently call Middle Earth, as long as you understand that we're speaking at the core. Now, we don't live inside the core. Nothing can live inside the core and survive. The core of a planet, sun, star, that is always the heart flames of creation. You don't live in those, you use them. But all of us that live in the atmospheric environment outside of the core, it is a beautiful place. And there's about 3.6 million of us. We maintain the stability of the planet. We make sure that the threefold flame that each of you now have within your physical garments, we make sure that that is evolving and growing, and we use it to help heal the planet when it is necessary further up towards the surface. We are aware that you are carrying the threefold flame in your garments. I come to ask you this day that upon the command of your great God presence, that 3 lines of force from the threefold flames within the chest cavity be directed into the threefold flames at the core of your earth. This will help your earth, and this will help you. More often than you have been caused to realize, your earth, she has not said it out loud, but when we meditate with her, we pick up in her heart flames. We have picked this up for 2 billion years. And your earth now, I will state again, your earth did not say this to us. We, meditating upon her, we picked up what your earth has been feeling. Your earth, until almost 100 years ago, had maintained the feeling that you would be gone, that you would leave this planet. Your earth has been building a feeling of inquiry as to how she could work with the divine plan of your hierarchy God being to remove you so that she could begin to heal herself. She is aware that she has been delayed her progress because the people on the surface of the earth have not been evolving as was the intention. Now, Virgo, the Ascended Mothers from India, the beloved Vesta, and the Kumaras from Venus, they have been nurturing the heart of Gaia. They have been nurturing with the promise of give them more time. They're changing, they're evolving, they're growing. Of course, this message has come in the midst of the last 300 years. And of those 300 years, the bombs that have fallen in the Earth's atmosphere upon the surface of the planet have increased dramatically in the last 100 years. And so here Mother Earth hears one message from the hierarchy that steps in and loves her on behalf of the people that don't know that Gaia is a being. Every living planet or star is a being. And so, because she is a being, there's another thing that you must know. What is true of us gods of the earth is the truth of your earth itself. The hierarchy of your earth is its evolution from a responding I am to a creator I am. A planet that can live and breathe and think and communicate with its species upon the surface. Your planet is elemental, that is obvious to you, and ingrained within the very substance of your planet is angelic DNA. That's as simple as I can say it to you. So your planet is much like us. We are the presence, we are angelic, we are elemental. It is the great love that has come from Venus that has most nurtured Gaia to throw off the feelings. Because we are aware that Gaia is evolving from the impersonal I am to the individualized. Now, in her evolution as the impersonal I am, she has the ability to respond. Now, you know that the atomic structure of your kingdoms and your planet has taken on the duality of the visiting race. But that stops at 25,000 feet. We have what you might say a crystal ceiling at that level where we do not allow the duality footprint of humans, which is much worse than their carbon footprint, to go any deeper. Do you understand? So, it is the goddess of Venus, and all the things that you've heard about her son, the development of a seventh golden age, and all of these things that allow I and other visitors to come and see you. What you do not know is how much the goddess of Venus has stretched her arms around Gaia and loved her with that continued promise that change is coming, that the peoples, the visiting race is waking up. Venus and all of us, and has always been our greatest concern. And that is, how do we keep Gaia from responding violently to what is taking place on the surface? Because it would be her right to respond back in like manner. We know this would throw off all life from the planet. So while we all have our responsibilities to maintain, we have had this extra burden in knowing when to love Gaia and to support her in releasing from some of her pressure points that energy, if you will, that if it builds up too much would otherwise cause her huge reaction. Molten lava is an example of the deep anguish of Gaia that we help her to release that anguish out, so that she can breathe more and receive the great nurturing love of the goddess of Venus. Now you are amongst numbers who have the flame in your heart. And now too you have the spiritual center in the chest cavity that is growing. If you command 3 currents from the 3 flames, descend and anchor into the threefold flame in the center of planet Earth, to be governed by Pillar. I will receive those 3 currents you command from your own threefold flames. I will fasten them into the threefold flames of the earth. I will anchor them in. Do you think that is possible without Gaia knowing? This has not been done, precious hearts. This is what needs to be done and can be done. with what Mother Akasha is going to provide and step in. If Gaia is to receive the proof of your evolution upon the surface, where your currents of life from your threefold flame is anchored into her threefold flame, she will not react in a way that throws off life from this planet. She will stabilize. Unknown to you, the beings that live inside our physical sun have stepped in with Mother Vesta to stabilize that area of the world, the planet at the surface, and down through the oceans into the tectonic plates that is identified as the Ring of Fire. As you may know, this area has been on fire, now with extreme fever for 9 years. And from Sumatra to Japan, the lesser quaking, you have seen the evidence of this fever in that Ring of Fire. Some of the beings from the sun have worked with Vesta to settle and stabilize that area. This is important news. If you, this student body, will command the threefold flames within their spiritual center to drop 3 currents and anchor those currents into the threefold flames at the center of the earth that are governed by Lord Pillar. I will receive them. It will make a big difference. Now, this will create a great cushion. As you well know, to be told something, well, that can help, but when you experience, and she's been told about this evolution that's happening, the awakening that's happening, but she's not received the threefold flame. You are not resurrected enough to project rays of light. You can command the threefold flame to release 3 currents to the threefold flame inside the earth, governed by Pillar. You command it in the name of the Mother's Presence, Akasha. And Akasha will provide the intervention to see that those currents connect to the center of the earth. Now, I am very aware that up on the surface is the locality of the nations Canada and the United States, and where you are is up in the West Coast. Be clear with me and understand that many of the things that you have experienced in hurricanes, typhoons, these types of storms, this has more to do with the science of your world that has been interfering with the Earth's atmosphere, plus the discord that people are generating into the Earth's atmosphere. Next, we are aware that is a good conversation has been going on this last century of the dangers of the West Coast, the dangers of the plate system that run parallel to the coast of California. You are aware of these fault lines? And there has been a fair stabilizing because the workings within the earth, those that work within the earth, are providing a steady, what you would call quaking in this region, which is releasing the kind of pent-up energy that could otherwise create a clashing of the plate system, which could bring massive disruption up on the surface. We do not at this time see aggravated concern. We have concern until things change. On the west coast of California, we have concern. It is not aggravated concern. We do have aggravated concern for the Pacific Northwest. Now it has come to my attention that there was a certain news release on one of your cable television news. And this was an excellent article provided by meteorologists and others that the plates in the Pacific Northwest are in much greater danger than the San Andreas faults and how that connects to the various fault lines underneath the west coast and extending 200 miles out from the west coast of California. To say it straight and forward with you, today there is a much greater danger in massive quaking. It is aggravated concern, beyond aggravated. The likes of which, if we have measured, if you have a 9.6 earthquake, which is very possible, the same thing that happened in Japan recently, you have the same scenario underground happening. And if you had a 9.5 earthquake, then you would probably see close to the area of Portland, all the way up the coast to the Canadian border, and all the way inland to the big highway. What is that highway called? I-5. If you had a 9.5, all of that would fall away into the ocean. So you are speaking of coastal cities. You are speaking of the loss of cities such as Seattle. Now, there is not doom and gloom around these things. There is an urgency of attention. The opportunity was given to me in 1932, in 1937, and 1939, 1941, by the mighty Saint Germain and his messengers, the Ballards, to educate America as to the dangers of the various movements of the fault lines underneath and slightly off the California coast. As a result of our discourses, all sorts of things came forth. Even those who showed a new map of the United States of America with a great part of America on the west coast missing. Some of you may have seen that map. It circulated in the 1970s and 1980s. No ascended being does anything without clear intent. And I can say to you, the warnings that we gave off the bow, we gave many warning shots, and people listened. Students in the early I Am activity stepped up and called forth by the gods of the planet and lubrication of the gas belts, a lessening of the friction of the tectonic plates, the ability of those plates to be massaged slightly so that their movement and the necessary movement could be done without massive harm at the surface. This has been accomplished. It is our desire. And when we see that science finds an open door through a cable news network and through modern-day meteorologists to paint the picture, and apparently this was done in the last couple of months, that what the Pacific Northwest is facing is potentially 20 times more devastating than the worst scenario that California could have ever faced. Now I will tell you, if I could take you inside, the tectonic plates are raw. They are absolutely raw. Your scientists do not understand the vast central nerve system of the planet that is distributing liquid gas, which you call oil, and other elements that are the natural lubrication, so that all movement in the planet is done so without harm at the surface. Harm is never required. If harm occurs, it is because of the footprint of the visiting race and what they have done to this planet. If I was up on the surface and living in any of these areas in the Pacific Northwest, I would make sure that I was living in the highest ground, certainly not at sea level. Now, I brought this forth. It was I, Pelor. I gave the evidence to the meteorologists. I gave the evidence to Saint Germain. He created the open door that I could come through in the 30s and 40s. I gave the warnings. I said what would happen if these fault lines move in a disastrous ways. And out of that, lots of attention. And as a result of that attention, peoples in some ways began to live better. Those awakened entered their homes and temples and demanded intervention. There are great God beings, just as you won't understand this, beloveds, but just as you have a fire department with their hoses and connect to the water element, can put out a fire. There are great God beings that can connect with the universal liquid light and can refeed what are the nerve canals of your planet and restore the lubrication within your planet that she requires to make her movements as natural as possible. Just as those students stood up and demanded the intervention from the gods of the planets to the ascended host to bring forth a balancing activity of the fault lines off the California coast to prevent the massive earthquake and to provide the liquid light from the higher stratosphere into the central nerves of the planet to restore the lubrication. All sorts of calls and decrees, the most important things as you all advance, and that is to keep the surface of your planet as safe as possible. This cannot be done without intervention. In the same way that Saint Germain called me forth in the early years of the I Am activity and the warnings were given, people listened. Your scientists have not ascertained that if they do something stupid over here, they have not mapped out how that can have an effect way over there, thousands of miles away. Prophet has hidden times more than you wish to know. Prophet has submerged science, facts, and kept the science and facts away from the people in the name of prophet. There is no God being, there is no ascended being who will say to you that this newest scientific industry that is known as fracking is harmless to the planet. It is not harmless. It is more harmful than you know. It is the modern means of bringing forth natural gas through this term fracking. If you have not heard of it, look it up. But it is devastating to your planet. And if anyone is the same as it has always been, you will have those who will speak up, and then the big industry will come along and make them look silly. So, today, your Pacific Northwest is in more dangerous condition than the 9.1 earthquake that hit Japan the year before it hit Japan. Did you hear what I said?
Yes.
Now you can prevent this. You must understand, precious hearts, if you go into all those countries, Indonesia, Philippines, all in that region, Asia, you do not have great numbers of awakened peoples. You have oftentimes religious peoples, but their religious beliefs does not help the planet. So you do not have. It is no secret that the degree of awakened people in Los Angeles has had a vibrational impact upon the area. And we are very aware that of the Pacific Northwest, Vancouver is the largest center of awakened people. And therefore we know and we hope and we lean on the vibrational impact of those good souls that are awake. Yet you may consider to call forth for the two main plates under the Pacific Northwest that restoration of the gas belts and the lubrication of those plates enough to make their movement be done without harm to the surface of the planet. I thank you. My time is actually over. May the blessings of life be full upon you. Now, having said what I've said, do I say something else that will give you some encouragement? Or will it lessen off on your need to do something about it? Now I can say to you, the likelihood of what happened in Japan happening was greatly increased because of a history of what has been going on in wars centuries after centuries and after centuries. And knowing what would happen in World War II, Mother Mary came forth, and you know about the experiences of Fatima, and you know, if you have looked at the letters that have been released from the Vatican, you will see that Mother Mary warned that unless there was change coming, that there was a good chance the Japanese islands would sink. She warned that if the Russian people, who would find themselves in a tide of red energy, meaning communism, that if they did not free themselves of that yoke, that they would find a tremendous danger in that whole area. Russia threw off the Soviet Union, they threw off that yoke. The people are free to worship God again. But Japan could not completely duck the bullet that was coming. Mother Mary said it was coming. There's been enough change in this world. There's enough movement of heart. There's been enough vibrational change that we could help. The Evening Rose helped. And that was to maintain the main island while the earthquake was happening. Your scientists have gathered several times to try to understand, in the presence of a 9.1 island, why the island did not break apart at least into 4 pieces, which it did not. Rather, of course, is the great danger of the nuclear reactor, which was harmed. So, precious hearts, Mother Mary, no one has ever said anything about the Pacific Northwest. However, it is in the bigger picture of everything we are trying to avoid that is written in peculiar language in the book of Revelations in the Christian Bible. So much of that has been set aside now because the sacred fire is on the earth. But the warnings of all the angelic horns blowing and all the things that would take place, one thing after that, all of that has been delayed. Most of that has been set aside. The ideas of the Antichrist, a feature of mortal mind, has been set aside. What has not been set aside is to whether it is to be seen that whether pestilence and raging earthquakes, etc., would take down sizable portions of humankind. That, and even your ascended masters up on the surface, they tell you this golden age will succeed. The numbers are yet not known. For there's a few more things that people of the earth must shift and change. Meanwhile, this student body is strong enough to call forth the balancing and the lubrication of the tectonic plates, of the fields of the Pacific Northwest. Do you understand? So that no harm is brought to the surface. I thank you and I bid you well. We see a glorious future for our planet. Yet make no mistake, it is people like you, it is you and people like you. Well, elemental beings, of which I am partly, are very well known for crossing both fingers and both feet. And we are doing this. We are counting on those awakening on the surface. We must keep this planet safe while you evolve your people back to a divine way of living